So in previous video, we talked about different market or different product. And that is one way to look at diversification. And another way would be to look at diversification in terms of what kind of products, what types of markets we are going to diversify to. And our diversification can be related and unrelated. Related means that we are going to develop some product, some markets within the capabilities or value network of organization. Oh, what does it mean? Value network. Remember Porter's value chain? And we talked that there is inbound logistics, outbound logistics. So value network means any part of the network from the original sourcing of the resource, like wood, like oil, like milk, and the final customer. So, for example, a person that buys a chair, a person that drives a car, a person that buys some chocolate. So this would be related because it is within value network or within capabilities. So, for example, I teach ACCA, and for me, related diversification would be to teach CPA. That would be different market. It would be not the UK, it would be the USA. It would be different product, but the capabilities like the understanding of accounting on financial stuff, blah, 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 that is important. Okay. Now, as for horizontal and vertical integration, let's look about that. Let's talk about that. So when we're talking about value chain diversification, we might think about horizontal integration or vertical. Horizontal means that we are going to look at the level of the chain we are in, and we are going to look at something that is either complementary or something that is competitive. So, for example, when we are talking about the production, let's say streaming services like Netflix, horizontal would be to open cinemas because that is actually a substitute. Vertical means that we are going to expand backward or forward within the existing value network. So it means that we are going to become either our own supplier or distributor. Let me give you an example. So imagine that you are a car manufacturer like Volkswagen. If you open a dealership, your own dealership, that means that you are going to integrate forward. So this means you will become closer to the final customers. So this means that we are going to invest in someone who is going to be our customer, and then we will get closer to the actual customer. Okay, so this means that we will go forward. We can go backward the chain, and let's say we will try to we produce some goods. Imagine we make cheese, and we can make cheese from the milk that we bought. Or we can actually open a company that is going to be a farm that is going to produce milks, produce milk. So this would be backward integration. Backward means further away from the customer. So these are the types of diversifications. And what are the advantages of this vertical integration? Well, so first of all, we would be able to secure the supply of components in terms of quantity, in terms of quality. So, for example, if we produce some posh cheeses, we will learn for sure that the milk quality is indeed good. And also, we will be protected in terms of cost because it is easier to control cost and the source of their creation rather than to control markups in the chain. Also, there would be stronger relationship with the final consumer of the product because we will know everything from scratch. A share of the profits at all stages of the value network will be ours. And this would be a more effective pursuit of diversification strategy. And we will create barriers to entry because if we control everything, we control a supplier of main resource, then we will not just sell it to competitors, and potential competitors would not appear. But there are problems, there are risks with this vertical integration. So first of all, it could lead to over concentration. So we are going to be more sensitive to instabilities and the fluctuations in the economy. So, for example, if we would have this vertical integration, and let's say we would be an airline company, also we would be a company that produces airplanes, then if COVID and all of the airplanes are landed, then we suffer in this business and in that business as well. The problem also could happen that we will not be able to use the economies of scale or technical advances because, well, there will be different industry that requires different resources. As for unrelated diversification, we are going to develop something that is beyond our current capabilities, which can happen, and can have its benefits and drawbacks. Unrelated diversification produces the type of organizations that is known as conglomerate. Conglomerate means that there are so very different companies. Yay! So, like Procter & Gamble, they produce cleaning, like liquids, powder, and so on. They produce food. This would be a conglomerate. Now, what are the advantages? We will be able to spread risks. So, if nobody is buying our cleaning product, at least they will buy food. It would be improved profit opportunities because we will be able to do that by acquiring businesses that have better prospects compared to the business we're currently located. We can escape from a declining market by investing in somewhere new. We can use organizations' image and reputation in one market to develop competitive advantage into another market. It also will be connected with disadvantages. So first of all, it might lead to dilution of shareholders' earnings per share, if the diversification will happen into industries that have high price to earnings ratio. What does it mean? Well, price to earnings means that we take how much one share has a price, and we divide it by earnings per share. Earnings per share means profit after tax, divided by number of shares in circulation. And speaking like absolutely simply, this means that we look at how many years pass before the share that you bought is going to be paid back. Not really, because you don't really get the cash out of earnings, and not really because we do understand that prices tend to rise, and if you bought a share, let's say 10 years ago for $1, it's not $1 today. But you can just think about it this way, but make sure not to write it. So there are some industries that are riskier, and in those industries, price to earnings ratio is going to be small because investors would not overpay too much compared to the profit after tax the company gets. And there will be some industries that will have high price to earnings ratios because they are less risky and the investors would be willing to overpay over profit after tax. It would be a lack of common identity and purpose in a conglomerate organization. So conglomerate will only be successful if it has a high quality of management and financial ability at central headquarters, and also when organization is shared values and beliefs are properly supported by HR. Failing one business may drag down the rest. So, for example, if one of the companies is going to cause some environmental scandal or may employ child labor, then unfortunately it would have a negative impact on the rest of the business. Lack of management experience. So problem is that if you don't know that very business, even if it might seem to be simple, you just don't know the business. So you may know, let's say, airline industry, but you may not know how to manage hotels. So you cannot diversify. As for diversity and strategic success, well, Johnson highlights that organizations undertaking a limited degree of related diversification are likely to perform better than those that remain undiversified. So it's better to diversify, but it's something that you are a bit familiar with. However, as the degree of diversification increases, the rate of performance improvement is likely to reduce and actually may become negative as organizations become extensively diversified into unrelated fields. And actually, when we're talking about diversification by means of acquiring something, unfortunately, acquisitions quite often destroy value. Quite often, the price that is paid for acquisitions is too high compared to the value. International diversification. The growth in number of organizations diversifying their organizations internationally has been driven by globalization because now, because of the internet, because of availability to travel fast, it is much easier compared to what it was before. And globalization refers to the growing interdependence of countries worldwide through increased trade, increased capital flow, so it's really easy and cheap to transfer money, and rapid diffusion of technology. We have a term that is called management orientation. So this is international product or market diversification that requires organizations to adopt an appropriate management orientation. And this means that we need to look at ethnocentrism, polycentrism, and geocentrism. So this is about how we treat how special we treat the location. So ethnocentrism means that we will look at just our home country and we are going to concentrate here. And we are going to focus on domestic market, and exports are going to be seen as secondary. And we will try to exploit whatever it is the domestic country, like languages. Well, for example, if we're talking about ACCA courses, there are some ACCA courses that, despite that are online, but still they target mainly a single country because they are taught in some different language, like in French or like in Hindu. So the management orientation will be closer to ethnocentrism. With polycentrism, there will be an assumption that it would be necessary to adapt almost totally the product and marketing program to each local environment. So we will talk about adaptation. So the various country subsidiaries of multinational corporations will be free to formulate their own objectives and plans. So, for example, when we're talking about languages, then maybe there will be a global company, but in let's say one country they will use, let's say Farsi, in one country they will use French, and so on. Or maybe they will learn that this country cares a lot about the environment, so they will be inclined to talk about environment. Some countries value, let's say, cost effectiveness, so they will try to become as cheap as possible to the customer, and so on. And geocentrism and regioncentrism are synthesis of these two previous orientations. They are based on the assumption that actually there are both similarities and differences between countries that can be incorporated into regional or world objectives and strategies. So something is going to be so similar it will not need adapting. Geocentric companies are going to use something that we call integrated approach to marketing management. So each country's conditions will be given due consideration, but no one country is going to dominate. In practice, it's not entirely true because quite often the headquarter country is going to dominate because that is where the research and development marketing team is going to be located. And a great deal of experience and commitment will be required to make this approach work. And geocentrically oriented companies promote the benefit of market convergence. Convergence means that we are going to actually overlap them a little bit and blend them together. So that is diversity. And once again, the things that you need to know about thinking about how to expand and what products to develop. You need to consider the stage of the product so that you don't end up with having too many stores or too many dogs. You would need to think about whether you want to try to develop new product, new market, or both, whether your strategy for diversification would be related, or maybe you are going to look at similar products, competitive products, or complementary products, or maybe you will try to diversify your value chain. And that is what I wanted for you to learn. And I will see you next. Bye.